Good afternoon. Do you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yaroslav. I work here in Mail.ru in Tarantool team. Today, I'm gonna tell you about our experience with Lua developer tools, with our development processes, and how we code. So let me start from brief explanation on what Tarantool is. You can roughly imagine Tarantool is a logit interpreter plus database management system built in. Of course, there are much more powerful features, but those two are main ones. Our team consists can be approximately divided into two parts. It's core team who develops Tarantool as a product itself, and the solution team who builds projects for the enterprise, for enterprise customers. I work in solution team, so my presentation is most about projects development. In solution team, we have 35 full-time Lua developers. We write a lot of code. We have many projects, and nowadays there are approximately 300,000 lines of code entirely. That's quite a large code base for, especially for Lua, which is very brief and concise. Our customers are usually banks, telecom companies, oil and gas, and others. So we develop a lot, and our main goals are to write code fast and do it well. You may know that a price of every mistake depends on when it's found. So if you find a typo in code, you just fix it. If you find the mistake before you commit, you just fix it and no one can see it. If an error found during staging or pre-production testing, you have to spend time for another merge request, for another review, and in production an error may cost you real money. So our first purpose is to find mistakes as fast as possible. And here are a few techniques which can help you to do that. Consider this example. It's quite simple, some HTTP handler which renders stat request. So we call function getStat and return it as an HTTP status 200 and encode it as JSON. But if we call it, we get the result nil. Oh, in JSON null. Doesn't matter. Of course, I hope your test will show it that there is a mistake, and you will go and try to investigate it. And you will notice that there is a mistake here. The variable is misspelled. To eliminate this kind of problems, the first simple and yet still powerful feature is a so-called Lua strict mode, which we embedded as a module. And if you enable it with the simple require strict on, you can Lua will protect you from accessing undeclared variables. And instead of result null, you'll get a clean error that variable is not declared. That's what we want to do. That's cool, but strict mode is very simple, and there is a beta thing called LuaCheck, which is a static analyzer. Please raise your hands who have heard it, who uses it. Oh, that's a lot of people. What about the rest? No? It's a Lua linter, and it highlights mistakes right when you, as soon as you type. So you don't even have to wait for tests. You get the highlighting even before you write a test for it. And that's good. And it's also a good practice to make it a part of continuous integration and continuous development, because other developers can see if you missed someone that was highlighted in your IDE. LuaCheck is easily integrated into every popular code editors like Sublime, VS Code, Emacs, Vim, so just use it, it's very helpful. But both of these tools can't find all mistakes. And there is another popular problem connected with dynamic type system. Lua is a dynamic language, so we don't have static types. And sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's not what we want to. Consider as an example the implementation of that getStat function. It accepts two parameters, URI and some options. And internally it just does HTTP get to some another server. It's not much important, but if you try to call it from handler with URI equals to nil, you will get an error saying attempt to concatenate nil value. Of course, it will show you the line number and source file, but that's not a good error message. And we would like if it was better. It is usually a good practice to use asserts for this kind of public API calls, because this way the error message would be URI must be a string. It's much better because we definitely know that someone passed invalid value there. Okay, but the second argument is still hard to be checked. First, if we don't make any checks and opts is a table, we are likely to miss this kind of typos. Here you see it's written with a typo. So if you don't have an assert, there is no way to check that everything is good. And when you try to pass the option with correct name, you will get that nil, you will substitute default value, and the code will work as not as expected. And you will not even see a warning. Neither LuaCheck nor strict mode can detect it because it's just a key in a table and nobody cares what key you have there. So it's still bad. If you try to assert it, you're likely to get tons of code because you have to check all options, you have to check that there are no undeclared unknown keys in that table, and this is just a boilerplate. So we made a wrapper for assets called checks, which is a lightweight type checking for functions. It works using debug get local function call, and with this single line, rather short piece of code, you can check that both are of type you expect. For example, without arguments, you get an error message that bad argument to get start string expected got nil. That's perfect. We see where was the error and we go to fix it. And for options with a mistake, it says unexpected argument timeout with a typo. So we also go and fix it. So the sooner a mistake is detected, the better, and the sooner code fails is the better. And after these three tools, we start getting errors during tests, during CI, GitLab fails, that's good. But we want to, now we just have to check all places and fix if someone has fired. Of course, when we say about GitLab CI, the only thing we have is logs. So it would be nice if logs point us what's going bad and what was the initial reason of that problem. To do so, there is a low default approach XP call with handlers, which allows you to specify a handler for an error. And if you specify such a callback as debug traceback, you will get a large string which lists function call stack. So in particular this example, we see that handle state request has called getStat with invalid argument, so we go to that function and discover what's wrong there. But this approach, this single approach, has two small problems. First is that if we use error everywhere, we are not able to determine developer mistakes and such problems with types from business logic errors. So Lua recommends us to use instead return nil and string. It's another popular approach too. So if checks raises an error, it's one kind of error, and business logic gives another kind of error, so we can determine, but in this case we lose stack trace. So it becomes harder to debug business logic errors. And to eliminate this problem, we usually use the next approach, which is implemented in another small model, and the entire thought is that you should return something like error objects with debug encoded inside. That way you get both and traceback, and you can operate that objects as you want. I guess a lot of people do something similar in their projects. Can you raise your hands, please? Who else uses some error wrappers instead of just strings? Okay. Just for statistics. So let's move to the next topic, testing. And I will not cover testing frameworks with much information because we think that all frameworks are good for their special purposes, and we can't find anyone much better than the others. So we use many of them. Tarantool has its own framework called TestRun, which is specific for Tarantool. We also use Lua Unit, PyTest, and if it's convenient, then it's okay. But another interesting thing in testing is code coverage, which is usually measured for your code. But here I want to give a warning of line coverage and the popular tool LuaCov that measures it, because sometimes it is likely to misinterpret high line coverage with low errors. So the problem is the following. Consider the function getStat again. We can easily cover it with just one test, and it will show that line coverage is 100%, but the truth is that if the line is covered, it doesn't mean that it won't trace. For example, what would happen if we call getStat for connection refuse URI, or what will happen if server returns some other but 200 result? And we can't see that from line coverage. So the general recommendation is that, of course, if your line coverage is 0, it's very strange, but I guess you don't need line coverage to notice it. I mean, you already must know about your very low coverage. But if you are going to write some tests and going to cover some uncovered code, and think that 90% would be better than 80%, that's strange. That may not help you in production, actually. Another standalone testing scenario is performance testing, which we usually use. And the open question here is that there are several tools, GPF tools, Google performance tools, and Coldgrint, and some other who helps you to collect C-stake, and there is GTP sampling profiler, which collects LuaStack. But the question is that we didn't find a tool which can capture both of them at the same time. Look at the picture. This is an example of one of our models, and the profile here is well, actually, but there is only one entry point. It's small here, but it's called decode. And it wastes almost all time inside creating tables, decoding strings, hashing, and well, table operations. But imagine what should we do if there were several entry points which are spread out Lua code, and from that stack trace we can see if which part of Lua code wastes time in C functions. So if you have an answer for that question, please contact me after the conference. And one more thing is code sharing. And here I mean not only sharing the code with a customer and delivering our products, but also reusing code within teams. So for Tarantool, it's normal to use all kinds of packaging like RPM, deb, static archives, and so on. But they are not too useful when we need to quickly develop something and give it to a colleague. And the best thing here is, yeah, here they are. And there is a perfect tool, LoRox, which we love and use a lot. And just in case you missed half a year ago a presentation in Lua Workshop, there was a release of LoRox 3.0, so I will just highlight again the main features of LoRox. Actually, not only 3.0, but all the LoRox. So it's convenient for development. You can use LoRox as your own build system. And the general recommendation is that you can use it instead of make. Actually, LoRox make should call make and not vice versa. In 3.0 there will be there is LoRox test command, which we are looking forward to. And LoRox is useful for shipping code. You can pack a rock, you can give it to someone else who will install it and use without, just like in 5 minutes. And for release management, it's useful too. There are, if someone doesn't know about it, 2 useful commands like write rock spec and new version, which allows you to render new release, and so you can publish it almost automatically. So that's all what I had to say, and in conclusion, let me repeat that that's important, that the sooner mistake is found, the better. For that you can use strict mode, you can use Lua check, you should use. You can test type checking when you need to. Not everywhere, but somewhere it's useful. It's always good to capture traces, to analyze them later. And the separate thought is that don't chase line coverage, but think twice. So that's all. Here are some links for a tool I have mentioned in my presentation, and if you have any questions, you are welcome.
Thank you. I see you have active supporters back there.
Кому? Микрофон кому?
Questions? Someone raise the hand.
Here is a hand.
Here is a hand in the front. In the front.
Thank you for the presentation. What editor do you use for Lua?
Everyone uses his favorite editor, and if you want to know the statistics, I can mention that the most popular within Tarantool solution team is Emilua. The second is Sublime, and there are at least 1 or 2 people who use almost everything. VS Code, Atom, so
Emacs.
Vmax, Vim, Emacs.
Thank you very much.
Sure, of course.
Another question, please.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I want to ask what problems do you have with using LoRox, if any?
With LoRox what?
With usage of LoRox.
With usage of LoRox? Well, there is one thing about LoRox that we try to work around in our development process, and it's connected with local installation of LoRox. We usually like to install ROX like, you know, in Python virtual env, and it's one of the things that LoRox doesn't provide out of the box. So that's it. Local installation.
But doesn't it? I think it does.
Local,
With proper configs.
I mean in current directory.
But I think
Does it already?
Yes.
From what version?
Guys, who are sure that LoRox does that? Yeah. So just ask in the mailing list for LoRox, it can do this. Anton?
Hello, thank you for the talk. Just minor question. Have you already tried the brand new feature of LoRox 3? I mean, running tests when installing a ROC. Do you have such experience?
No, not yet, because we hadn't ported our development process to version 3 yet.
Thank you.
But will you? Do you have plans?
We have plans. I have plans.
Okay. Much
At
plans.
least test it and then look.
Okay, thanks for your talk. And let's back again to the example where test was connection fused and bad request. Do you think that there is a mixing of unit testing and integration testing? And should the developer of that unit write their tests?
Yes, of course. This is the problem of unit testing, but the idea is that coverage won't show you that there is a problem. Only close look of a developer can tell that there is something wrong here. For example, you can notice that there is no error checking at all inside the getStat function. And it just returns the result of HTTP GET as is. And that's strange too, but in this specific case, low coverage can't help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next question, please.
Thank you. I have a question about the Linux versions. Which Linux is better to work with Tarantool? Thank you.
Do you mean which Linux kernel version or what?
No, I mean Debian maybe, or CentOS, or maybe another version of Linux.
Ubuntu!
Yes, maybe.
Use the version you... Do you mean distro first of all? Or
I mean, which distro is better to work with?
it's all up to you. Use your favorite distro.
Tarantool doesn't care.
Yes, okay.
Well, there are several lines in Tarantool documentation that says that the Ubuntu CentOS are officially supported, and some others, and some other distros are not listed there, but that doesn't mean anything, and you can use your favorite own.
So
roll your own package.
So it's no recommendations. There are no recommendations. Thank you.
Why should they be there?
Thank you for the talk. I see you pay a lot of attention for type checking and error handling. Have you thought of offloading some of that work into native code, like C, for instance? You could define some C structs that get filled with arguments for each API call, and they get processed on the C side for like type checking, correctness of the requests. That could possibly increase the performance, and maybe more types checking can be performed this way. Have you thought of that?
I don't think that offloading such parts of code will help us to check errors better. Moreover, it will waste the time because C development is always slower than Lua development. it won't speed up finding the errors because well, just for the same reason. So the reason we pay so much attention for the error checking is that we want to save our time. And as I already said, the faster you get an error, the faster you can fix it, the more time you save, the better your code, and everyone is happy. And porting this to C is not what can solve these problems.
Okay.
More questions?
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's closely related to the talk, but I would like to know why did you choose Lua for Tarantool? Which options did you consider?
Did you consider what?
Are you happy with Lua, or maybe you regret something?
I regret nothing. Sorry, go on. Do you?
No, me neither. It's a very hard question. I don't. Well, the Tarantool uses Lua for so long time that it was. I think I was in school yet. Anyway, why Lua? Lua is very fast to develop, and as Roberto already said, it's fast to execute. It's really easy to be embedded. It's good for use when you need extensions and all kind of that stuff that we use in Tarantool. So I think Lua perfectly fits there.
Bravo. Okay.
So
Next
you mentioned that you are using G.P. Do you stick to Lua JIT and therefore to Lua 5.1?
Yes, we use Lua JIT inside the Tarantool, and actually all the things I say are about Lua JIT implementation, which is built in there.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Just one question. My name is Dmitry. When Tarantool will ship with Russian Astra Linux? Do you know what is it? I know
no, I don't know, and I don't know when.
You're lucky, Dale. It's just
well, Tarantool is open source, so I guess someone will say, "Well,
when you will provide the package."
Yeah.
No,
that's what I mean.
The question is about when Tarantool will be certified with Astra Linux, with use with Russian government organizations. It's
okay.
It's administrative
I think I need
question.
some more background on what is Astra Linux. Is that certified OS or that kind?
Yeah, yeah. Government certification.
Certification costs money, and who will pay for certification?
You?
No.
Then, sorry, you have to find someone. Maybe mail are you eventually.
Hello. A question about LuaRocks package manager. How do you use it? And do you have any local caching for packages for speed up and security questions?
We use it as usual, I think. I think everyone else uses it the same way. We have our own server with LuaRocks server.
So you support your own tree of packages?
Yeah, that's true. And what was the second part?
There's a question for security and speed up, not to download from the international websites from your local server. So you answered this part.
Do you mean security for LuaRocks upload?
to download. I mean that if LoRox could be replaced package, you like pin the distribution package on your website.
Yeah, if you use global LoRox, then in theory it's not secure because you not control it.
Yeah, thanks.
Everything we need, we
So they
push
do.
to our...
How do you do this? How do you solve this problem? Because as I understood, the original distribution don't have such option.
But it does. You just specify only from. It was implemented.
Download
I
everything.
think my company sponsored this feature, actually.
Download all the packages locally.
Yeah. There's a flag from command line. I think.
Okay,
from
I
the
will
config
ask you. Thanks.
Okay. So, guys,
Is it time for dinner already?
20 minutes. You have 20 minutes more. Roberto, yeah. So, thank you, Yaroslav. A few more announcements. Roberto, would you be so kind to sign some more books? Yeah. So, we have 20 minutes until lunch. Lunch will be on the first floor. Meanwhile, Roberto will sign some books. Please don't stampede to him. Be polite and form a line. And okay, I have to ask you something. Please, then entering this room, if you are from that side, if your place is here, please use that door. And if you're from that side, please use that door so not to cross the camera when the talk is on. Okay? Thank you. And one last announcement, two last announcements. First of all, there's a book, Programming in Lua 4th edition, that I have here. Who has one? Raise a hand. I have one. Roberto has one. Yay. Okay. So for everybody else, we will have a contest on a round table after the last talk for the best question. Yeah. And actually, no, not for the best question. Roberto will name a person. No, Roberto doesn't want to do this. Roberto, what do you want me to do this? Just do a drawing. Okay. Then any piece of paper that gets on this table, write your name there or use your business card. And you can use my business cards, actually, because I'm obviously not on the drawing, right on the back side. And we will, Roberto will draw from someone's hat a business card for someone who gets it, who gets this book. Okay, good. And the last announcement, we will have after party. After the conference, nearby at the restaurant called Fermo Grill, right here. A short walk from here at 20:30, starting from 20:30, 8:30. Okay, and I leave you all to Roberto and coffee. Thank you.